Hey there, I'm Dakini Leah, and you are watching Revealed. Today, we are talking about why sex and intimacy are so elusive sometimes during lovemaking. And my special guest today is Mark Casey, and I know you're going to love him. So go get yourself something to drink and settle down. We are live in 30 seconds. Hey there, I'm Dakini Leah. I'm facilitator of the world's only online tantric meditation community. I'm a psychology professional and a tantra educator. And this is Revealed. Revealed is a monthly interview series, and we get to talk with up-and-coming wellness providers from all over the world about topics that are of particular interest to you, because you are all about healthy living. So the big question that we are talking about today is why intimacy and that feeling of being warm and close to your partner can sometimes be elusive during lovemaking. In fact, about just a little bit less than half of women will report feeling not just disconnected from their partner, but like sad and lonely and angry. And I couldn't find statistics from men, but the men that come to see me in my Tantra practice definitely report that loss of intimacy during lovemaking. And why is this? Isn't lovemaking supposed to be the most heart bonding and most connective way that we can experience intimacy with a partner? And the answer is no, not always, but we can learn how to achieve that lovely intimacy. And you're going to love my special guest today. This is Mark Casey. He's a somatic sex and relationship coach, and he lives just outside of Boulder. Mark is the author of the audiobook Living Your Erotic Potential. And stay tuned, because I'm going to show you in just a few minutes how you can get your free copy of that book. Mark he's studied from so many different disciplines, from tantra to sex education and all kinds of lovely things. So you're really going to enjoy him. I'm going to go ahead and bring him on right now. Hello there, Mark. It's great to see you.
Hello, Dakini Leah. It's great to be here.
I'm really glad you're here. So tell us, what causes people to be hungry when it comes to intimacy? And ecstasy is the word that you use. You mentioned that intimacy and ecstasy are our birthrights. So why are they so elusive?
Well, that is the question we're going to talk about today. And my hope is that all of our listeners will be able to take away one, two, maybe three practices that they can put to work right away that will improve their enjoyment of sex. But to address the problem, I think if we look at it, we get taught a lot of things growing up in school. Some of them are very helpful. Some of them aren't so helpful.
Yeah, I remember that. Especially the stuff I learned in the bathroom stall.
And particularly in the area of sex, very, very few of us have received good information and good role models for having a healthy sex life. So that's a big part of the problem, because fundamentally the problem isn't with sex. The problem is our relationship with it. And the good news is that regardless of your past, your upbringing, it's never too late to bring greater enjoyment into your own sex life and that of your partners.
So the problem isn't sex. Sex is in perfectly good working order. The problem is our relationship with sex, our level of education, perhaps the role models that we might have around us. So how big of a problem is this? Tell me more about the kind of people who come to see you.
Sure thing.
Yeah.
It's a huge problem, because, and it's one of those that's underreported. In talking with my physician friends, they tell me that the two topics that their patients typically don't want to talk about are mental health issues and sexual dysfunction. And so as a result, they tend not to get treated. And similarly, many physicians and psychotherapists are not equipped to deal with that. And hence, I think this is why sex educators and tantra teachers have such an important role today.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with you. Sexuality is part of who we are. We have to have a good relationship with our sexuality. And if we don't, then we really run the risk of missing out on the intimacy and the ecstasy, as you say.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's certainly, there is some tragedy in the whole thing. People live a whole life that's not fulfilling in this very important aspect of life. So there is some seriousness and sadness in there, but there's also humor around sex, and I think that's one of the ways we deal with that. And if you'll indulge me, I'll share a little humor.
Yes, let's hear your funny jokes.
So this one is by Jay Leno, who was host of the Tonight Show for many years. So in Germany, police are searching for a woman who holds men at gunpoint and forces them to have sex with her.
Oh, no.
Actually, the gun isn't for sex. It's to keep the guy around later to make him a cuddle.
Ah!
Because very often we guys want to get away from it all. And,
Yeah.
and then one more by Rodney Dangerfield. He said, I asked my wife, on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you rate me as a lover? She said, I'm not good with fractions.
Oh my gosh. Ouch.
Ouch.
Well, yeah, I mean, sex jokes are funny. And I think the reason for that is just what you said earlier, is just as a society, we're trying to come to terms with why we have such an unhealthy relationship with it.
Yeah.
Where is the intimacy? Where is the ecstasy? Where's the why are the promises around sex unfulfilled?
Mm-hmm.
And that comes out in our humor. At least it's a good way to start the conversation. At any rate.
Is.
Yeah.
And just one more. This one is by Joan Rivers.
Okay.
She says, it's been so long since I've had sex, I've forgotten who ties up whom. So, so there is a lot around it, both guilt and shame. And I would offer that shame in particular is one of the biggest problems that we have around sex. And that is not inherent to sex. That is something that we laid on it.
Yeah.
And it's had very significant impacts, because the more that we feel shame about anything, but particularly around sex, the more it disconnects ourselves with ourselves, because we have something that we feel is wrong with us, making it very difficult to connect with another person. So a lot of my work as a somatic sex coach is being a de-shamifier.
A de-shamifier.
Yes, de-shamifying. Because virtually, there are so many things that people, or small things that happened in one life or one's life, and sometimes big things, but where there is shame being held about it, that serve no purpose other than to make themselves and their partners less happy. So we can learn from our mistakes. I think that's very, very valuable. But to shame them and to feel that we're somehow bad as a result of them is a big mistake.
Yeah, I would agree with you there for sure. So looks like we've got a few people who are joining live. I want to let you know, I want to remind you, those of us who are watching, that at any time, go ahead and pop a question in for Mark, and he will answer it live and in real time for you. And if you're watching later, you can go ahead and email Mark, and I'll pull this up here. If you have any questions, coaching by Mark at proton.me is how to get a hold of Mark personally and one-on-one. Mark, tell me a little bit why women especially seem to lose interest in sex, or to feel like that intimacy and the ecstasy is elusive. In my research that I was doing to prepare for coming to see you, I read a statistic that 46% of women at least once have felt not just a disconnect, but sadness and anger and loneliness after they have sex. So that's definitely not intimacy or ecstasy. So what's happening there?
Part of it is just the busyness of modern life. And while these mobile devices can do wonderful things, are for many people, they distract us in a way that doesn't allow us to really feel what's going on in our life.
Yeah.
The society, and then the pressure just to making a go of it in life, making financially surviving today is part of it. There's so those are some of the things that I know what I was thinking. And so particularly women who are raising children without a whole lot of support, I've heard many times that sex is just one more thing I have to do. So there's a lot of pressure on that. So while there's some realities to deal with, there's also opportunities, though, to carve out time and through education to learn and unlearn some habits to make for a more fulfilling life, which sex, for most people, that is a key part of having a fulfilling, happy, even joyful life.
So slowing down, letting some stress go, and getting educated
Yes.
about what sex is and the potential for intimacy and ecstasy. Those are our keys to bringing the whole self to the bedroom rather than the distracted self.
Yes.
Is that what I hear you saying?
Absolutely. And I just want to also put out there that we men in the world have a particular responsibility here, that and I'm talking about men and those who identify as masculine, for those who identify as feminine, if they don't feel safe in their world, going out into the world, or at their home, that tends to shut everything down as well. So feeling safe is a key part of it, and a big role of us men is to call out behaviors that threaten women and create more safety around, for men and women, around their sexual expression.
If you're just joining us, my guest is sex and relationship coach Mark Casey. And Mark helps singles and couples step into their erotic potential and achieve intimacy and ecstasy. And Mark, tell us more about making women feel safe in the bedroom. You're talking about that this is something that men can really have a big impact on, is that feeling of safety. Can you talk more about that?
Sure thing. And a lot of it begins before you ever get to the bedroom, contributing to a world where women, children, and everyone feels that they can be themselves, to be safe. So it starts before you get to the bedroom. In the bedroom, however, I would say attunement is one of the most important things. So I love that word, because if you think of tuning an instrument and how instruments that are tuned in the same way, when the strings on one is stroked, the other will start vibrating sympathetically with them. And so in that attunement that we have with another person, that builds trust and allows for relaxation. Part of it too is just realizing that, just like in other aspects of our life, things don't always go according to our plan. In fact, often they don't go according to my plan. And so to be willing to dance with that and to evolve. And if you're whichever side, if you have a partner who is not as interested in having sex as much as you, the place is not to get that person engaged, is not to blame it on that other person, or to have them take responsibility for it, because it really isn't the other person's responsibility to satisfy your own sexual needs. And though it can be very nice when that person does accept your invitation and come in there with you, but I would say one of the best ways to do that, beyond the attunement and the safety I talked about, is through acquiring knowledge and improving your skills and your own game, to make it more inviting and more compelling for someone to say, yeah, I want to do this with you.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the comments that people are writing, and I'm reading feeling safe and sexual trust are very important. So, and I know for myself, the minute I heard you say that word, feeling safe, just something in my heart went, yeah, that sounds really good. I think a lot of women, uh, I think we feel that as a culture, being an empowered woman means having the career and having it all together with the kids and being strong, and that idea of having that safe place to just surrender and let a man's presence, let that masculine energy protect us, is a is tantalizing. I mean, it makes my mouth water thinking about it.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And certainly it is built generally over time in a relationship, and it includes things like doing what you said you were going to do, or if you fail doing it, cleaning up the mess you created. So there's some creating trust that way through your personal integrity. And I would also say that our own health and vitality is a big part of it too, because if we're not getting enough sleep, we're not don't have a healthy diet, and we're not taking time to exercise very often, that'll leave us too drained to enjoy sex.
Yeah, so we need to keep ourselves healthy. We need to educate ourselves about topics in sexuality, and we need to recognize how each other works, how the masculine energy works and how the feminine energy works. So you mentioned that women need to feel safe so that they can surrender, or at least the feminine energy needs to feel safe so that it can surrender and
Yes.
blossom. Can you talk a little bit more about what the male energy means?
Sure thing. And in this conversation, I think it's good to distinguish between masculine and men and feminine and women, because regardless of the body form, there can be one usually has one or the other more dominant within them. And it's not always, for men, it's not always the masculine. For women, it's not always the feminine. So generally, though, in a relationship, whether it's opposite sex or same sex relationship, one is carrying more masculine and one is carrying more feminine. And it's through that difference, that polarity, that's where the juice flows.
The juice flows when there's polarity.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. Tell
So
me about erotic potential and polarity.
sure thing. This is one of my favorite topics.
I
So
know.
getting back to the question about a partner who is not as engaged as you might want him or her to be, creating this polarity will increase the sexual desire, and certainly the sexual energy between the two of you. And that can be done, again, this all starts, in fact, most of it is outside the bedroom. And because that's where the most of us are spending most of our time, is outside the bedroom, going through life. So doing things that will bring, and both, whether you're the masculine or feminine, there are specific things that can be practices that can be done to accentuate and to empower that. Just, an example in yoga, yin yoga is designed, to work, with the yin energy. And there's,
And the yin is the feminine energy.
yin is a feminine, and there are other, yang or masculine types of exercises and energy which accentuate that side of things. The other thing is, working with a tantra teacher, a coach, because again, most of these things we were not taught. We didn't have good role models for us. So just like with anything, if you want to be a better golfer, you get a good golf coach and you learn how to do it. So all of these things can be improved upon. And what I really like, what's so beautiful, is when a couple who recognize that they want more in this way, and maybe it's because, if nothing else, the one wants their partner to experience more. when they can go into it with a beginner's mind and say, hey, I want to, learn about this. And so there's coaching, tantra sessions, tantra meditation work, and there's so many things. And there's also things. For example, dance. Certain types of dance, in particular, can create a great deal of polarity. I like the Latin dances in particular. Look how they're so sexy, the way the energy moves
Tango was sexy.
two people. Yeah. So there are a number of ways to work with that. I would also say it's important if you want to improve your enjoyment of sex and your partner's enjoyment, getting a good physical exam and making sure there aren't any underlying health issues. Again, through the stress and lack of sleep, good sleep that people in the Western world are experiencing, it could be that there are some things that, for example, getting better sleep in itself could bring greater vitality. Mm-hmm. I've also, more and more as people age, and I'm certainly doing it myself, is there are more people I'm finding who hormonally have had changes which make a significant difference in their sex life. There's a number of ways to deal with that and increase herbs, and there's other natural ways, and also there are some bioidentical hormones which I have seen people take from their sex life, a couple being flatlined to going through the ceiling just about. So
that's neat.
There's a lot of different ways to address that, and I would say look at all of the aspects, from health, how your knowledge, getting enough sleep, diet. I would look at all of those things, because it really is a holistic topic.
I really love what you're saying, that before anybody even books a relationship coach or a sex and relationship coach, here are some things that you can try. Get healthy.
Yes.
Go do activities that will help accentuate whatever pull that you identify with, and start there. And we can all do those things. We can all pick up a book and just get more educated about sexuality in general. And I love that. I think that's really good advice, that the good sex starts before you get into the bedroom, is what I'm hearing you say.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And both outside the bedroom and inside the bedroom, one thing that is very often overlooked is the power of breath. And I'm talking about healthy breathing. Yeah. Our breath is really what brings eros to life. And again, most of us in the Western world are spending a lot of time in a sitting or in positions where we're perhaps only breathing in the upper third. It can be brought down to the lower thirds of the belly, which makes a big difference. And the third level, to get at all those, actually taking it down to the pelvic floor. So those are things, and it helps to have very often a teacher to initially learn how to do it. But practicing that by yourself with a partner, that in itself can not just transform your sex life, it can transform your life in a better way, because the breath is really what gives us our vitality. So I'm getting excited just talking about this.
Yes, I couldn't agree with you more. That's something that we practice at least twice a week in the meditation club. That is the breath work, because the breathing in the upper third of your lungs, as you say, this is our fight or flight. This is get things done. This is do, take care of kids, get out the door. And when we can bring our breath down further, now we're poised to activate our sacred sexual system, which is our zest for being alive as a person. Yes, for the bedroom, but yes, for everything that we want to do in life.
Yes.
Sean Weir is writing in saying, can either of you speak more about tantric dance, the dance being a spiritual practice, and any experience you wish to expand on? So I'm not familiar with tantric dance. I'm familiar with ecstatic dance. Can you speak to that, Mark?
Well, just a little. And if I don't understand the question, I'd be happy to talk to this gentleman one-to-one, but I'm seeing more events being paired with dance. There's Tantra Meets Dance is an event that's been going around, which brings ecstatic dance and into a tantric expression, and it's not so sexual as much as just having dance combined with the skills that will also enhance a tantric practice. So, not sure that answers it, but there's more and more. There's some good things, and as I said, though, traditional social dancer, the ones that can create polarity in particular. We have some great tango teachers here in Boulder. Two of them are my friends. danceoftheheart.com is you can find information on them. They'll get people tango dancing in one class, so you don't have to fumble for years before you get it. So I would say doing those types of things that are, I would call those, they're bringing up erotic energy, but they're not overtly sexual. And those types of things, can though definitely enhance and lead to not just more, but better sex in the bedroom.
Yes, I couldn't agree with that more. Definitely. So great question, Sean. Thank you for asking that one. If you're just joining us, my guest today is somatic sex and relationship coach, Mark Casey. And we are talking about the problem with sex, which isn't the problem at all, but rather our relationship with sex and how to find the intimacy and the ecstasy, which can sometimes be elusive around sex. And we are discovering that the elusiveness is a fairly easy fix. Yeah. Learning to develop skills around sexuality. You were about to say something.
Well, I was going to, for the folks who just came in, read a quote. And this one isn't pure humor like the earlier ones, but this one is by Deepak Chopra. And I think he's really right on here. He said, sex wasn't God's big mistake. Judging against sex was humanity's big mistake. Pleasure is as divine as any cathedral, any temple.
Yes.
I just think it's good to kind of let those words soak in, because very often pleasure is somehow considered to be selfish, or that we're not worthy of it, where I would say that it is our birthright. And when we're filled with pleasure, I'll speak for myself personally, when pleasure is running through me, I'm a much more pleasant person to be around. And so it is not a selfish thing at all. So I would say making pleasure a high priority in your life, whether you're single or with a partner, is important, because the more we're living in pleasure, the happier we're going to be, and the more productive and the more kind we're going to be.
Right. The Vijnana Bhairava Tantra calls that the highest yoga of all.
Yes.
Yeah. You're so right. We need to let go of that shame around sex, because there's nothing holy or sacred about that. Yeah. There's everything delicious and lovely and sacred about embracing the pleasure and sexuality that God has given us. For sure. Mark, tell us a little bit. We only have a few more minutes here, but I'm hoping that you can kind of squeeze your story. How did you become a somatic sex and relationship coach? And tell us what a somatic sex coach is.
Absolutely. So I will give the condensed version. And for anyone who wants to hear the full story, please do check out my audiobook, because I get into it first. But it really gets back to this issue. I would say as a young child, I felt erotic energy running through me at a very early age. But I would notice when I brought up the subject of sex, or I ran around the house without clothes on, it was not welcomed in my world. And both in the family, and they were all well-meaning, but and the Catholic schools I went to, there was this, I think it's fair to say, a repression around sex. And so it led to a great deal of confusion so a lot of my work has been a lifelong work of reconciling what I would say the split between the sacred and the erotic.
Yeah.
And
I think a lot of people can identify with that.
I think so too. I think most of us in some way or another have been told that there's something about our sexuality that is not good or whole. So that's how I got here. And and there was another part to that question. You talk about the coaching. Was that it?
Yes, I think people would.
Okay.
If you ask the average person on the street, what's a somatic sex coach? They'd say, I don't know.
Sure. So as the name Soma or somatic, we work with, you can think of it as a relationship or what a life coach would, but the entry point is really through the body as opposed to the head down. And so somatic coaches work with the body. Sometimes it's actually hands-on work, although most of my work is via Zoom, and it's teaching somatic practices that people can do on their own. We talked a little bit about the breath, but it's looking at the body, and there's some wonderful knowledge that's coming forth about the importance of how trauma is registered in the body. You may have heard of the book, The Body Keeps a Score. And the good news is that there are techniques for releasing that so that we don't spend decades carrying that around with us. So that's the entry point. That's where we work.
Oh, that's really beautiful. I'm so sorry that we're out of time because I could talk with you for hours. I love this topic and I love your approach to it. So if you are interested in booking Mark for a coaching session, send him, well, you can go to his website. That's what you would like people to do, isn't it? So you're going to want to go to youreroticpotential.com. And you can fill out the form there on the website and book an appointment with Mark and learn more about how you can discover intimacy and ecstasy and really reclaim it for yourself, not just in the bedroom, but in your life. Mark, thank you so much for being my guest today.
Absolutely. And that first session you book is complimentary, so no charge. So please do. And thank you, Leah. It's been delightful.
You're very welcome, Mark. It's been really good to see you.
Bye-bye.
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 So that was so fantastic. If you would like to learn more about tantric meditation and about breath work and about raising your sexual energy for your healing, for intimacy skills, and for self-development, then I really encourage you to check out livingintantra.com and join our meditation club. We are the world's only online tantric meditation community, and we are here to help you step into your authentic self so you can love and be loved more deeply than you could ever imagine. That's all the time we have for this month. I'll be back next month with a brand new practitioner and marvelous and delicious things to offer to you. I'll see you then.
Bye-bye.